Have you ever been afraid to ride a roller coaster, but then did it and felt invincible afterwards? Today, we are diving into the roller coaster of life and inviting you to ride threshold moments of life. I'm Danielle YS, and I guide modern Renaissance women back into their whole selves so they can uncover their soul signatures. And I'm here with
Victoria McMahon. I offer women and men time to explore who they are through the magic of life and what is awakening them to that true sourced self being. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Writing the Threshold Moments. In part one of the series, we begin with what it means to be in the spectrum of dysregulation to regulation, how we ride those moments in life, whether they feel small or really gigantic, watching how the body and mind interact within these moments to help us have a sense of what is that grounding way of being. Today, we want to be in the conversation of these moments may come in our awareness as we move through the moments of life. And then at other times, they come out of the blue and our awareness is surprised or shocked by the experience that's coming up. We may not even have language for it. We may not understand the emotion rising. We don't have any thinking patterning that we can call upon from previous experience in life. So, Danielle, I know that you've had a moment that's popping in from previous patterning. Maybe we'll start there and share about how this out of awareness feeling an event may happen and what comes from that for you.
Thanks, Victoria. So I remember when I was first starting to build awareness of my inner terrain and first starting to realize that there even was something inside of me that was worth investigating and possible to explore rather than just the external world. I was walking on a busy university street in downtown Palo Alto, California. There were tons of people around. It was broad daylight. I had been excavating a lot of things inside of me that I had never looked at before. And all of a sudden, it was like I had run into this brick wall and I just froze. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't have the words for it. Didn't know what was going on in my body, mind, spirit, or psyche because I had never experienced something like that before. All I could do was walk 2 steps and sit down on the side of one of those big fountains. I ended up sitting on the side of that water fountain for 2 hours, fully paralyzed, not knowing what to do. I was afraid. The thing inside me, I kept trying to put a lid on. I remember feeling like it was steam trying to bubble up, and I could feel that core fear that was coming up that had caused all of this. And I wasn't ready to hold it or see it, so I kept trying to clamp it down, like putting a lid back onto a pot. But after a while, I couldn't keep the lid on that pot anymore. It seeped out of me like word vomit. What if I'm a bad person? And that was the core fear that I had bumped up against. It was that wall that I felt like I had run into. And I had never given voice to it before. I had never given space for it to be in my field before. Now it was boiling over and had to come out. Now that didn't solve it. It was terrifying to say it at the time. Now I can say it because I've worked with it, felt it, and I know how to move with it. But at the time, it was just this huge, huge obstacle that I didn't even know I had inside of me. And when it came up, it was like, there's no way I can pass beyond this. It was like walking up to the Great Wall of China and feeling like, okay, how am I supposed to get through this? I might as well just sit here and think of something else. Going back to the questions you asked, what came through for this? Well, this wouldn't have come up if I hadn't already had a container helping me dredge up and poke at these different pieces that were alive inside me that I had pushed away my whole life. The second part was having that container to look at it and see, why is this coming up? What does this mean? Does it even mean anything? Or is it just something I can coexist with and say, yes, this is a part of me and it doesn't have to rule my life? which now I'm at that point, absolutely. And I don't worry about being a bad person. I just am a person. For 20 plus years, I hadn't listened to what was going on inside of me, and I didn't have the awareness. And I didn't listen to the whispers. It had to be this massive scream to get my attention and start to excavate and work with what was there. It's funny you mentioned moments feeling like they're coming out of the blue, or it can be those more subtle moments. This moment felt like it was coming out of the blue, but it really wasn't. I had been gathering research and having those whispers my entire life, rising into this scream. I just wasn't paying attention. It felt like it came out of the blue, but it was there all along.
I can still imagine in that moment, it is out of the blue when you sit at the wall for 2 hours. There's one curious foundational question I have before we step in a little more. You spoke about you built a container in order for this moment to occur, whether you were aware of it or not. Were you in an awareness of building a container that there were some specific tools or ways that you were paying attention in your life that you could call building that container for this bigger threshold moment?
That moment happened 6 or 7 months after I started doing the inner work, precipitated by a breakup that activated all of the grief and loss that I hadn't processed from my dad's death when I was 3. So the 22, 23 years of grief that hadn't been processed up until that point broke open in that moment in 2016, 17. And so for the first few months of that experience for me, it was like going down into the depths of my soul and my deep dark being and all the things that I hadn't looked at before, and starting to learn that it was okay to lean into the deep dark stuff inside of us rather than being the sunshiny positive person that everyone had known me as up until that point. I was building a container. I didn't know that that's what I was doing. I just knew at that time that meditation was the only thing that got me through the day. I was doing what felt good and right, purging so much stuff. As the months continued, I went to different retreats. I read a lot of books and attended different programs for this moment on the busy road and sitting on the water fountain. That was certainly a next piece of the journey, and also opened up from one of the retreats that I was going to, because they had us doing a lot of pre-work to dig in and have the things that we haven't looked at before coming up to the surface. Was I aware of building the container? It started long before. You could say when I was 3 and my dad died, but I think it started a lot earlier than that with our soul contracts or why we're here. Multiple containers, multiple Russian nesting doll containers.
That's what I was thinking, containers within containers. And that's so much a part of how we are in these threshold moments, nesting us for the next unfolding, or as we say, the becoming of who we are. Sometimes in our becomings, they can be messy.
Absolutely.
What's lovely is that in sharing your experience, it had me recall in my own life as a yoga instructor, I had always said to people in my classes, when you do yoga work and you are squeezing and soaking the parts of the body through different postures, whatever stories, emotion we store in the body comes to the surface, like you were describing. And it had me recall, I was at an event, we would do the 108 sun salutations as a group. And I was in the middle of a sun salutation. This wave of energy came through, and I laid down on my mat and started bawling. I had no awareness of what it was connected to, no story, no memory. My body was in the experience. One of my fellow teachers put me in a restorative pose. For the rest of the time, I did no more sun salutations. I just let myself weep without needing to know the story. I can feel the resonance of understanding that we have a tendency in our culture to say, if we don't know what's going on, there's something wrong with us. These two experiences are invitations to say it's okay to not know. You might be somewhere in the spectrum of, I was frozen for 2 hours in not knowing what was upon me, to I'm just going to weep for an hour, not knowing, not having a story. And I'm okay with that. I'm just absorbing whatever is releasing. It feels like this notion we wanted to explore today about the invitation to be in the stuckness may bring us to a place of release.
And I love that you said it's an invitation to be in the stuckness. Because when we say stuck, usually it's a bad thing. Like, I don't want to be stuck. I want to be moving forward, making progress. And stillness is often what we need, especially when it is stillness in the mind and the body can just let whatever needs to process out. And oftentimes, when we try to figure it out with the mind, that's an escape from the discomfort of the physical sensation and the energy that's coming up in our body, whether it's that stuckness, that paralysis that I experienced, or whether it's the weeping that Victoria experienced. They're all energy moving through our system, but since we label it as uncomfortable or bad, we try to change it in some way. And it is in that changing and controlling where we get more stuck. We try to get out of the stuckness so we get more stuck because the energy stays in our body.
I like that a lot.
Get stuck to get unstuck.
It's a natural process that if we're building our awareness container, that is part of our process in the spectrum of regulation, dysregulation, that it becomes part of the practice to watch and see where does that stuckness, that frozenness, where does that get us? So I wonder if I can take you back to that frozen, hit the wall threshold moment for a minute. What did that get you to have that experience out in public, no less, which is really kind of I don't want to gloss over that. It happens anywhere, anytime.
Oh, yeah.
Would you feel connected to, I'm in a moment, or was it just fully frozen, overshadowed?
Frozen, overshadowed, especially at that time in my life. I think now, having practiced it more often and having more experience and more vocabulary for it, I would easily be able to say, okay, there's stuff coming up in my body. There's stuff that needs to come out and through my body. So let's witness it and allow it to come and just let it all come. Whatever it is, let it out and witness it, I think is the really beautiful part that we can get to when we know what's going on, where it's not a separation because we're distancing ourselves from the experience of the emotion or the energy coming up. We become the container for that energy and those emotions to come up. They can just play out in. And how freaking cool is it that we can do that? Experience it and witness it at the same time. Insane depths and levels of human emotion come through us. That's where I'm at now. But at that time, no. At that time, it was like I was prey in a forest and there was a predator around. So I had to stay completely still so that the predator wouldn't see or hear me and eventually leave. It's just tough when the predator feels like it's inside of you.
You spoke to something that over time you built your own container to guide yourself. In the beginning, I'm imagining that you had a guide to help you in becoming your own container.
A lot of different guides. My path has always been pull on the thread that feels right for me right now. When it doesn't feel right anymore, there's another thread that I'm going to be pulling on and following. And it takes someone who's already walked the path and experienced it to turn around and say, hey, this is something cool to look at. Maybe you want to experience it and give us the invitation. It doesn't have to be step for step, especially when we're working with the inner frontier. It's that invitation. When I first started, I felt like I was going crazy or having a mental breakdown. And then someone gave me one book. The premise of the book was it's okay to lean into the shitty stuff in life. And I took that and ran with it because I was like, oh, I'm allowed to feel these feelings that don't feel good. Like I'm allowed to go into it and it's not going to break me or turn me into a different person. And It's been moments like that. I think those themselves are threshold moments, those invitations
Mm.
to go a little bit deeper, explore a little bit more.
So love that you said stepping into those moments of stuckness is a threshold moment in itself. That's a different way to think of threshold moments. There's threshold moments that come at us or out of us. And then there's also this threshold moment of saying yes to becoming connected to the wholeness. We already are whole. We just have stuck places where we don't see the wholeness of who we are. And so that's that invitation that you're saying to heal a layer. And the benefits of stepping into the becoming path are to find a new sense of safety, a new sense of navigating what may not be comfortable, but is familiar. We approach it with new eyes, with support from others, because we're not meant to do this life alone. I feel like there's so many aspects of how stuckness can be celebrated as that threshold moment that it is. One other thing I'm curious about is in working in stuckness, how do you connect and weave the regulation, dysregulation spectrum?
That's a great question. This is my special sauce as a guide at the edge of the unknown. When I was working at NASA, I was doing research on the origins of evolution, and we were working with algae. And the way that we were inviting evolution to occur was stressing the algae out, putting them into a water bath that was heated, so it was hotter than they were used to. Now, if it was too cool, nothing would happen. If it was too hot, the algae would die. But right in this Goldilocks zone, where it was hot enough, their evolutionary pathways would get activated. It is this same idea that I apply to humans at the edge of the unknown, experiencing stress and discomfort. Walk away, you're at the lower end where nothing is going to change. That's the too cold. If you're way past it, you've hit the wall like I did in that state of fight, flight, or freeze, you're overloading your nervous system beyond where evolution can occur because you're just surviving. In that middle space, we can evolve and become that container for witnessing, become the guide for ourselves and for others as we move down the path. It's in this area that I work with my clients. I said in our previous session about the accordion, sometimes we end up on the lower end of intensity on the accordion. Sometimes we end up at the top. And it's my work to guide us into the zone of evolution where we're feeling enough and we're also feeling safe enough so that we can explore and play and witness rather than being totally thrown off key or ignoring what's going on. It's the fun playground where anything can happen.
I totally resonate. I have a different language through Gestalt psychology and body process work. It's titrating to stay engaged, but not overwhelmed. So in that middle accordion spectrum. So that's beautiful. I love how you languaged it with algae. All living beings have that inactivity, that super duper active zone, and where they're fully present and in that flow of who they are becoming.
It's really cool because we can bring ourselves and each other into that place. We don't have to wait for it to happen. When we get those activations, they're invitations for us to come into that middle place.
I think we're getting into part 3 of the series, connecting us in. What happens when we have choice about the pace and the way in which we create that pathway to stay in that edge of the unknown. I can feel us dipping into part 3. I'm going to pull myself back and appreciate. And I'd like to say part of that closing is, can you come back to that feeling of stuckness at that threshold moment where you hit the wall? Can you say what it's like today to talk about that next layer of becoming of who you are now in having shared and been vulnerable to share this moment for you?
I feel so warm. I have so much gratitude for that moment. and so much love because it changed everything for me. So even though at that time it was the scariest thing I had gone through, being able to share it as one of those keystone moments of my life feels like it was all meant to be. Without that moment, I wouldn't be where I am now. It's an invitation into appreciating all of the moments, whether they feel good or whether they don't feel good, and being with them because they're here for a reason.
In the deep gratitude you have for yourself and that commitment to becoming who you are that I know you as now, I'm grateful to have this conversation. I'm appreciating you brought me back to a threshold moment I had forgotten about, how we witness one another. And sometimes we don't know we're going to be witnessing. We're not aware of our stuckness. We don't know how we witness one another. That is another layer of becoming who we are. They may be little threshold moments. I have more of myself because you brought that to the surface.
Who knows why that moment for you is arising? Maybe later today you're going to lay down on your yoga mat, be in a restorative pose, and weep for an hour. Who knows what's coming through?
I like that. I appreciate that. Allowing ourselves to be in the regulation, dysregulation moments. So, a beautiful part two. We hope you've enjoyed dipping your toes into what stuckness might look like and the benefits that come from honoring stuckness.
Allowing stuckness to get unstuck. Good to be with you, Victoria. Beautiful to be with all of you. Let us know in the comments if you've ever had a threshold moment of feeling stuck and what you chose to do with it. We'll dive into that choice next time.